This is a $12 million mansion. Huge rooms, high-end finishes, but it feels sterile. Now look at this. A 2-bedroom, 2-story flat, but every inch feels considered. Which one feels more thoughtful, more elevated? Chances are, you picked the flat. And that is no accident, because what makes a home look expensive has less to do with budget and more to do with design psychology. We're wired to value spaces that feel intentional, unique, and well put together. A high price tag doesn't automatically make something feel high-end. What we actually respond to are 3 psychological cues that signal care and value. First is effort. Our brains are incredibly good at recognizing and valuing things that clearly took time and skill to create. Imagine a handcrafted ceramic mug versus a mass-produced one. The handmade one feels more special because it shows effort. The same ideas applies in your home. Hand-thrown vase, bespoke table, or even an artwork that you choose intentionally. When a space looks like someone cared, it instantly feels more elevated. Second, uniqueness. We're drawn to things that feel rare. An iconic, mass-produced piece like an IKEA Kallax shelf is functional, but it rarely feels special because it is everywhere. Contrast that with a vintage bookcase or a custom one-of-a-kind piece. It feels more personal, more considerate, and more elevated. And third is intentionality. A $10,000 tuxedo worn with shorts doesn't look polished, no matter how expensive it is. It is the same in your home. Random choices feel jarring, but thoughtful choices, like repeating the same metal finish on your lights and cabinet handles or using the same wood tone across rooms, create flow. And that flow makes a space feel elevated. So how do you design a home that shows effort, uniqueness, and intention? Let's break it down into 8 design elements that make your home look more expensive, no matter your budget. Texture and materials have a quiet yet powerful way of signaling luxury, and nothing does this better than natural finishes. Think stone, marble, wood, linen, and wool. The second you see or touch them, they just feel valuable. But it's more than surface level appeal. These materials age beautifully. They develop patina, character, and warmth over time. That visible aging tells a story of longevity and authenticity, something plastic or MDF just can't replicate. Natural materials are also difficult to imitate. They have texture, irregularity, and depth, and working with them takes skill. That effort adds perceived value, even if it is subtle. So, if you want your home to look more expensive, prioritize natural finishes. And to take it further, layer them. Textiles are a great place to start. Add a throw over your lounge, layer your bed with a wool blanket, or hang sheer linen curtains. Even a Roman blind in a textured fabric works beautifully. Layered textures like these create depth, softness, and a quiet kind of luxury, one that looks beautiful and feels even better. But now, let's look at something a little bolder. There's something about curves and organic forms that instantly make a space feel more elevated. Take a look at this space. Now compare it to this one. Which one looks more luxurious? Probably the one with the curved, organic forms, right? That is no coincidence. Our brains are drawn to unique shapes because they feel more deliberate, more designed, and less mass-produced. Organic forms mimic nature, and we instinctively associate them with softness, comfort, and creativity. They're also harder to make. A curved table takes more craftsmanship than a simple boxy one, and that added effort signals value. One thing that I've noticed in many high-end spaces is that they treat furniture as more than just functional. An armchair isn't just for sitting. It can anchor the room, spark conversation, or even double as art. That is where the wow factor comes from. Lamps are an easy starting point. Many are sculptural by design, blending form and function. But don't stop there. Keep an eye out for dining chairs, side tables, even mirrors that introduce curves or unexpected shapes. They create visual interest and instantly elevate a space. And if you're thinking, oh no, all my furniture is boxy, don't worry, you don't need to start from scratch. You can soften harsh lines with a few intentional details, like an artful vase arrangement, a curved tray, or a lamp with an interesting silhouette. These subtle shifts can make your space feel more intentional and more luxurious, without replacing a thing. Another thing that really sets a space apart is the quality of the details. When you zoom in, luxury often reveals itself in the details. Just like curved shapes signal effort, a well-crafted object tells a story. Intricate details, premium finishes, and handmade elements almost always feel more expensive because they require more skill, time, and attention. Take joinery, for example. On one end, you've got drawers stapled together with glue and basic screws. Functional, sure, but they look mass-produced. Now, compare that to beautifully cut dovetail joints, precise, interlocking, and built to last. It is like the difference between a hand-stitched leather bag and a machine-glued knockoff. Both work, but only one feels like proper craftsmanship. The same goes for hardware. Good hardware has weight. Think solid brass, bronze, or hand-forged iron. Compare that to lightweight, plasticky, builder-grade knobs. They don't just look cheaper, they feel it. But it's not just about weight, it's also about design. Sculpted pulls, knobs with texture, or integrated handles that disappear into the cabinet door, all of these feel more custom and intentional. Just like a coat with mother-of-pearl buttons feels elevated compared to plastic ones, these details quietly elevate the whole space. And it applies across the board. A tabletop with wood inlay, a parquet flooring in herringbone pattern, handmade zellige tiles, or book-matched stone, each of these takes planning, precision, and care. And that is exactly what makes them feel high-end. But design isn't just about individual pieces. It is also about how they connect, which is where flow comes into play. I'm sure you've seen pictures of beautiful homes where everything just flows. The colors connect, the materials echo each other, and nothing feels random. That is not an accident. That is cohesive design. And it is one of the biggest reasons a home feels high-end. Luxury isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet confidence of a space that feels thoughtfully connected from one room to the next. So, how do you create the flow? One of the easiest ways is through a cohesive color palette. That doesn't mean everything matches, but it does mean repeating color in varying shades across different materials and elements, like how they've repeated shades of blue throughout this home. It is all part of the same color family, just used in different ways. It feels layered, intentional, and elevated. Architectural details help too. Moldings, paneling, even wall textures like lime wash or plaster, when they show up in more than one area, they create rhythm and continuity. Compare that to a single random accent wall, which almost always feels disconnected. And then there's built-in joinery, which is one of the strongest signals of flow and intention. When cabinetry is designed to fit your space and the materials are consistent throughout, it feels seamless. It adds function, reduces visual clutter, and makes the entire home feel more unified. If you're trying to make your home feel more cohesive, but don't know where to start, I have a free guide called Secrets to a Beautiful Home. It includes a decorating checklist that will help you spot those little things that make a big difference. Now, let's get into the little things you don't always see, but definitely feel. Have you ever noticed how the most beautiful homes never seem to have messy cords, clutter lying around, or awkward light switches right in your face? Now, a completely clutter-free space isn't always realistic, especially if you actually live in your home. But the subtle, invisible detail that makes a space feel polished, they can absolutely be planned for. Things like choosing switch plates that complement your other finishes, or tucking away cords using cable boxes, or running them neatly behind furniture so they don't become a tangled mess. Even placing power points in less visible spots, like under shelves, can make a difference. And then there's lighting. One of the most powerful upgrades, not just defaulting to overhead pot lights, but creating lighting that is layered, soft, and deliberate. In high-end homes, this is done intentionally. Spotlights on art or plants, diffuse LED strips along staircases or shelving, ambient lighting that creates soft pull of light throughout the space. They shape the mood and give your space that quiet, elevated feel. Just think about the difference between a luxury hotel and a fast food restaurant. One uses strategic ambient lighting to make you linger. The other blasts everything with ceiling lights to make you move on. These kind of details take a bit more planning upfront, but they have an outsized impact on how cohesive and considerate your home feels. Now, if you've ever stared at your room thinking, I just need to see it with fresh eyes, I've built a tool for that. It's called Room Visualizer AI, and it lets you upload a photo of your space and instantly see a completely new look, styled to your taste. It is like getting a designer's perspective in seconds. It is currently in beta and invite only, but you can join the waitlist via the link here or down below. Now, let's talk about the personality behind a luxurious home. Because if your space looks like it was assembled in one afternoon at IKEA, we need to talk. What separates a high-end home from a regular one is often curation. It is about layering pieces with character, things that feel collected over time and tell your story. That kind of space can't be slapped together overnight. It is a process, and that is exactly why it feels more thoughtful and therefore more luxurious. One great way to curate is by mixing styles. A vintage armchair next to a modern sofa, or an antique table paired with contemporary lighting. That contrast makes the room feel like it's evolved naturally over time. Another way is to focus on the story behind your objects. Is it something from your travels, an inherited piece, or print you fell in love with at a local market? Whenever I'm unsure, I always come back to the simple rule. Everything displayed in your home should either be functional, beautiful, or sentimental. If it serves a purpose, delights your eye, or holds meaning, keep it. But if it is none of those, it's probably just taking up space. And this applies to art too. It is one of the most powerful ways to express your style. But how you display it makes all the difference. Unless it's a wall-mounted sculpture or a hand-painted canvas, art should always be framed. It instantly makes the piece feel more intentional and polished. And a quick tip here. I find that matted frames tend to make prints look a bit more elevated, while floating shadow box frames work beautifully for canvases. These small choices add up and help your collection feel more curated. But it doesn't just stop there, because how you place them also shapes the room. Placement and scale are two of the most subtle but powerful design choices that instantly make a space feel more elevated. If everything in the room is the same size or lined up perfectly, it can feel a bit flat. But when you vary the scale and place objects intentionally, your home starts to feel more layered, collected, and considered. Maybe pair a large table lamp next to other smaller objects, or put a statement vase on your dining table. That contrast in size and shape creates visual rhythm, which makes the room feel more high-end. I also find that larger items tend to feel more luxurious than lots of tiny ones. A bunch of small trinkets often create clutter, but larger pieces feel more substantial and intentional. That said, if you do have smaller objects, try grouping them together or place them on a surface like a tray, or within a shelf niche. This tricks the eye into seeing one cohesive arrangement instead of a scattered clutter. And here's one more tip. Don't be afraid of asymmetry. Most high-end arrangements aren't perfectly balanced. They usually vary in height and scale, but a little bit of unevenness actually makes the space feel more relaxed and natural. And while visual design is key, the most luxurious spaces feel good in every sense of the word. We often focus on how a space looks, but touch, scent, sound, and even movement shapes how it feels. When all these senses are considered, your home becomes more than just beautiful. It becomes immersive. To do this in your own space, start by focusing on touch. That means adding tactile materials like soft velvets, rough linens, warm wood, or stone. These textures invite you to touch and make a space feel layered and welcoming. Next is scent, which I think is one of the most underrated design elements, but it's a game changer. Think of a boutique hotel. They all have a signature scent that is subtle, refined, and memorable. It makes the space feel more inviting before you've even opened your eyes. In your home, you can try diffusers, candles, or reed sticks, but it's not always about adding scent. Open your windows regularly if the air quality is good, or invest in a good HEPA filter air purifier if you don't have that luxury. Next up is sound. A luxurious space feels calm, and that is often because it sounds calm. Soft furnishings like rugs, heavy curtains, and upholstered furniture help absorb harsh echoes and reduce outside noise. They also add visual and tactile richness too, so it's a win-win. And if you want to go further, consider music. I like to invest in decent audio as it completely changes the mood in my home. And finally, there's something called proprioception. It sounds technical, but it's really just about how easily you move through your space. If you're constantly bumping into things, it might be worth considering your layout, or even the shape of your furniture. But if your layout allows for clear, comfortable pathways, your home feels more spacious and considered as it just flows. All of these sensory details, the way things feel, sound, smell, and move, quietly tell your brain this space works. It is intentional, it is luxurious. Now, let's see what all of this looks like in a real home. This is Abhishek Dekate's apartment in Toronto, and it's proof that an expensive looking home doesn't have to be a $10 million mansion. In fact, it is a one-bedroom apartment. What makes it feel luxurious is how intentional and personal it is. First, it is a great example of slow decorating. Abhishek has lived here for over a decade, and the space reflects different chapters of his life. From culinary student to full-time content creator, everything has been collected over time. Vintage urns, stacks of books, sculptural lamps. He even found a three-legged milking stool from the early 1900s, a piece that feels personal and irreplaceable. His space is also a great example of cohesive flow. The maroon veined natural stone countertops in the kitchen reappear in the bathroom, which creates visual continuity. Shades of red are then repeated in small thoughtful ways, like the rug and the book in the bedroom, a cushion in the living room, and even a drinking glass. Throughout, you'll notice curved and organic shapes, especially in the living room with the coffee table, side table, paper lantern lamps, and accessories. He's also layered a mix of natural materials, a leather sofa, wood armchairs, and wool blankets, all contributing to a warm, tactile environment. In the bedroom, the craftsmanship really stands out. The custom headboard with integrated nightstands is a great example of intentional design. It is functional, beautiful, and well executed. Even though he has lots of smaller objects, he avoids clutter by grouping them, stacking books and using trays, which creates thoughtful arrangement that feel curated. Overall, the home is rich in texture, full of meaning, and thoughtfully put together, without relying on a massive budget or trendy furniture. It is a reminder that what makes a home look elevated is less about what you buy, and more about how you choose, which brings me to my last point. Hopefully by now, you've realized that luxury doesn't always have to mean expensive. Sure, a bigger budget makes some things easier, but you can absolutely create a space that feels elevated without spending a fortune. It just takes more effort and patience, like hunting secondhand, DIYing thoughtfully, and choosing pieces with care. And that is not a downside. In fact, it reinforces one of the core ideas we've talked about. Effort signals value. If you're working with a limited budget, I recommend prioritizing one or two standout pieces, like a sculptural lamp, a statement chair, or a large piece of art, rather than spreading your budget across a bunch of generic items. Those anchor pieces immediately elevate everything around them. For example, I found this huge table lamp on Facebook Marketplace for $25. I spent another $40 to replace the shade, and now it is one of the most unique pieces in my home. It is bold, sculptural, and something I never would have found in stores, at least not for that price. And don't underestimate the invisible details like hiding cords or being mindful of clutter. These small changes quietly tell your brain this space is well cared for. At the end of the day, you don't need to spend more, you just need to design with more intention and a little patience. And often, that is what creates the elevated feel you're after. If you enjoyed this video, check out this video on 10 easy ways to upgrade your home on a budget, and this video on what makes a home look cheap. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.